Hi, and welcome. I am here with you today from Storied, the next chapter in family history. We are a new family history platform. We pride ourselves on our storytelling, relationships outside the tree, collaboration, and affordable family history. So we hope you check us out, and welcome to today's session on telling your family story through photos. Make sure to follow us on our social. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see our social handle at storied_social. We are on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and we even have a YouTube channel with lots of demos and tutorials on how to use our product. So let's jump in and get started. I am Heather Haunert. I am the Associate Marketing Manager and in-house genealogist for Storied. You'll see my email address here is haunert@storied.com. Make sure to email me if you have any questions or just want to share things that you enjoy about our platform and any ideas that you might have. Love to hear from our users. So this is my family. As you can see, photos are very important to me in my storytelling. We do like to, I should not say we, I like to visit cemeteries of ancestors. And of course, I drag my family along and make them take pictures. But these are things that I use to help tell my stories at storied.com. So I love pictures. And really my whole point of this session is to just kind of get your thinking outside of the box and think of different ways you can use photos to tell stories. And so I'm going to give lots of different options here. And I know there are tons and tons more, but this is just kind of get those creative juices flowing and thinking about how you can use photos. So here, is the obvious one. Regular photos that you have in your stash, either current ones from your family. You can see my son's graduation or Haunert family camping excursions, or maybe you have some older pictures. This is a Civil War picture, not from my family, one that I found, but the photo of the woman in the wedding dress is my second great grandmother's wedding picture. So photos, we all have stashes and hordes of them everywhere. And if we don't, other family members do. So making sure that you are taking a chance to look through those photos and how can you bring those photos in to help tell stories. So photos is the obvious one. The next one is something you might not think about. I have stories from stock images, and the whole point of this one is for you to think about, you have a story and you want to tell that story, but you don't necessarily have a picture to go with it. So find one on the internet. I've got lots of different choices here of websites that are free to download pictures, and you might be able to find something that suits your story. My personal example from this page is the one on the left with the dreaded circus peanuts. My great aunt, every time we went to her house, she had these awful peanuts. Like, I still remember it to this day. And I didn't have a picture of being at her house and her circus peanuts. So I went out to the web and found just a stock image of circus peanuts that I could use to help tell my story. So that worked out well. But think about, what's important to your story, what's kind of a main theme, and then find an image that would work for you. Kind of in the same vein of that is stories using AI pictures. So yeah, artificial intelligence is all over the world right now and kind of taking it by storm, whether it's to help with storytelling like we do with our Story Assist feature, or even with pictures. I do use a lot of AI when I'm telling stories. I know I mentioned finding something from the internet, but sometimes I just can't find a picture that works for me and is something that I really want to use. So these are a couple that I have created using AI technology. Probably my favorite one here that really kind of blows me away is the one here with the little girl and the cane pole. I did that, and it was supposed to be based on me, and I was like so shocked when it came out looking like this, because that could have been me as a child. So think about how you might use AI technology to help generate a photo that's more specific to your needs with telling your stories. Okay. The next is telling stories from historical records. And this one is actually one of my favorites. So think about a historical record that you have in your stash with your family tree. And what kind of information can you pull from that record to help tell a story? And the one that I have here is one that I use as an example often. So this is a passenger list, a Baltimore passenger list. And this is a story that I had heard from my husband's side of the family forever about how his great grandfather had come over from Germany and met his future wife on the ship. And yeah, that, just a story. And of course you can write about that story. But as I was digging through historical records, I found something I thought was interesting and kind of gives a little bit more weight to the story that everyone was telling. So on this passenger list, and this is interesting because I found this record several years ago and kind of took it for face value, found Steve's grandfather or great great grandfather on here and kind of left it at that and really didn't look at the rest of the record until just a year or two ago and was pleasantly surprised. So I've circled here, this is my husband's great great grandfather. And when I went back and looked at that record years later, I noticed that where I have the heart here, Lizette Pleger, was my husband's great great grandmother. So the story that they met on the ship is highly plausible, especially considering that on the ship manifest, they were just two people apart on there. So use these historical records to tell a story and expand your story. You can use the record as the image of your story and then expand on it. I've got a birth certificate here, and think of all of the information that you can nab from the birth certificate. You may not have known, for instance, on this one, this is from my great grandfather, that he was a mechanic. That's what was listed as his job on this birth certificate for my great aunt. So use those historical records. They have great stories buried in them if you can just pull out those details. Stories from the newspaper are another favorite of mine. It's always very interesting what you can find out about your family. So these are both from my family, and sometimes it's just basic information. And like I said, with the historical records, sometimes it's information that kind of helps corroborate what you've heard in other stories. So this one here is one that I was so thrilled to have. I stumbled across this article, and it was talking about this mule that was in the family for probably 19 years. And he had arrived from New Jersey. He had been shipped out east and then shipped back to the family. And I was so excited to find this newspaper article because I actually have a picture of my great uncle and the mule, who is talked about, both of them, in this particular newspaper article. So it was a great way to have something besides just a picture of the mule and my great uncle. I've got a story that I can expand on to go along with it. And then the one here, a Hancock Street rumor, I just found this a couple of months ago and I was just blown away by it. Again, kind of by accident, I'm just digging around looking for anything that I can find about my family members. So I was looking, my great great grandfather passed away when he was like 40. And he and the family were living in Brooklyn, which is very unusual because my family's, hardcore, straight from the Midwest. And so they had gone out east to live in Brooklyn for a couple of years, and that's where he passed. And so I always thought that was kind of unusual. I really hadn't ever heard any information about what had happened to him. And so I found this newspaper article, and holy cow, when I did, it was crazy. So the people in the neighborhood were kind of spreading the rumor that it was my great great grandmother's fault, that he had died because he wasn't feeling well, and she'd left with the kids to go visit family, and she came back and he had passed. So this was kind of, a scandalous topic in the newspaper of them saying, it was her fault, and the doctor saying it was absolutely not her fault. It was just natural causes. So again, it's amazing what you can find in the newspaper, and these were, fairly good sized articles, but they don't have to be. You can find even just small little tidbits and take those to expand on a story. Heirlooms. I do have a lot of heirlooms personally. And so this is one where, take a picture of that heirloom and then tell a story about it. Maybe you don't have it. Maybe someone else in your family has the heirloom. So in your story, you might want to indicate where it came from, any kind of story about it, who has it, anything like that. So I've included a couple of different things as options here just to kind of give you an idea of how I've done it with my family. The family record on the left is an embroidered family record that's pretty cool. And it's very delicate. So that's the thing that's beautiful about being able to take these pictures and write these stories about them. You can record that, especially with items that aren't in great shape. This bed, I have the whole bedroom suite that was from my great great grandfather and his family. And so again, I can capture that and tell any stories that I know about it. And then the artwork that I have, very fragile. And I can tell stories about it. Supposedly it's my great great grandmother, actually third great grandmother, was a sibling to William Henry Powell, who was a famous artist. And I like to think he painted this, whether or not he did. But taking these pictures of heirlooms and using those as your springboard to help tell your stories. Okay, stories from prompts. So I do this a lot. I am in charge of our social media at Storied. And so I am every week trying to find questions that I can post on our social media that just kind of help prompt you to give you an idea for a story. I use Pinterest a lot. You can see here I've done a search for family history interview ideas and come up with quite a few options. 80 interview questions, 260 family history questions. So it's really easy to search on the internet and find ideas of questions that will kind of prompt you into a story that you might have. Stories from an artifact. So these are, in my mind, kind of similar to the heirloom. The heirloom is really that piece that is sentimental to me, and something that has been passed on. These are kind of similar, but these items can definitely tell stories as well. And I've included up at the top, I've got maybe a ticket. You went on a special trip and you had a special ticket, or a receipt from your first date, or any kind of unusual items and artifacts that you've kept over the years. And so on this page, just to kind of give you a feel for things that I have included, this is a high school program from a basketball game. This is a wedding invitation. This is someone's diary that they have. And then this is someone's report card. So even though some of these things might not seem like they're super important or noteworthy, they're things that you can tell stories from. I love even the report card, kind of looking through there and seeing, what did they do well? What did they struggle with? I always love looking at old report cards or any of these items. So use those items that you have stashed away, or that a parent or grandparent have stashed away. Use those to help tell stories. And then stories from an event. I kind of think of this as journaling. So an example that I've used recently, my dad has cancer and we had to go through 33 rounds of radiation treatment. And so I took him every day. So this was my way of kind of decompressing with what was going on, and kind of journaling the events. So every day when we would go, I would, I've got day 24, spring has sprung. It was so beautiful in downtown Augusta with all of the azaleas blooming. And so that was something that I kind of nabbed onto that day. Sometimes the events were just everyday, ordinary, here's what was happening, or maybe something happened at the treatment center that day. And so I kind of did a countdown as we went through our treatments. But it could be any kind of event. Think about how you can capture the essence of Storied.com is to really come up with these short, concise stories. And so this idea of having a journal and just writing just a little blurb about it is helpful. So that is that option. And then I really encourage you to just look at the ordinary when you're out and about. I think sometimes something strikes me and I immediately have an idea for a story. This was an example. This was actually on the way to take my dad one day. I went past this VFW and they had a sign for bingo. And that made me immediately harken back to the days when I was little and my grandma used to take me to bingo with her when it was a special treat. So it was a great way to take something that I just saw a sign, made me think of a memory, and then I could find a picture that would go along with that and tell my story about going to bingo with my grandmother. So again, just when you're out and about, think when something catches your attention, it might be a great memory for a story. So I hope that's helped. We've got lots of different options. And again, there are many, 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 many others that you could use to tell stories from, but it was just an idea of different pictures that you can take and use to help as a springboard to tell those stories for future generations. Today, we have available as a happy birthday to VGA, a 20% off code for Storied. Now, storytelling, if you have an account at Storied, you can have a free account and tell as many stories as you want for free. We do have different tiers available, and today we're offering special pricing for our ultimate package, which gives you the ability to do groups, share those stories and storytelling with other people. And we also have our historical records, US and UK, and all of our newspapers from Newspaper Archive available in the ultimate package. Typically that's $139.99 for a yearly subscription. But today we have a 20% off coupon for VGA attendees. So you would go from Storied.com. From the website, you would click up at the top to plans and pricing. And then you would sign up for a free account, choose an ultimate package, and you get 20% off today, which is a great deal. I hope you've found some great ideas that you can use to help with your storytelling. And I look forward to seeing some of your stories at Storied.com. Happy storytelling.